Welcome back into the Hurrdat Sports Show, live from Summit League Media Day. We're now joined by second-year head coach Dionnah Jackson-Durrett of Kansas City. Coach, I have to know, first of all, what's the excitement level down in KC?
Oh, we're excited. We are beyond excited. We have a fresh new team and more experience on the staff, so if nobody's excited, I'm excited. So it's been fun. Like the last couple months have been a lot of fun.
You had a lot of turnover to this roster this year. When you're out in recruiting and looking for what you want this Kansas City identity to be, what are you looking for in those players?
Well, first, I don't like to call it turnover. I like to call it upgrading.
Okay,
but,
there you go.
I like it.
We were just looking for more competitive personalities to be in this league, to play people like South Dakota State, South Dakota, North Dakota State. Like, you have to be competitive night in and night out. And a lot of times you want to look for that in recruiting. And so that was the goal. The goal was to get players more like me. Like, I'm competitive. Like, I want to win. Like, I hate to lose at everything. And so I needed that fire. And so when we went about, recruiting, we had recruited a lot of them all year. But, spots opened up, and so we could recruit more. We could get more of them, and, that was really the plan.
When you think back to the run that you had here, you advanced to the semifinals, you guys beat Denver, you beat North Dakota State. It was with a very depleted roster, obviously. But what kind of momentum does that give you then in those conversations you're having with recruits and thinking, all right, this is step one, this is where we want to go moving forward?
I think I was so happy for those 7 that we had, right, to just end the season on a positive note, right? And then you just tell the recruits, like, this is what the future looks like. Like, that's the kind of competitive nature that we have to have. We came into this with 7 people. All you could do was compete.
Yeah.
And, you talk about that in recruiting. You talk about, like, just this is what it's supposed to look like. This is what we need for it to look like every time in practice, every time you walk in the classroom. Like, I want you to have that competitive feeling.
I know one of the biggest things, and I have this conversation with a lot of coaches who go from that assistant chair over to the main chair. The buck stops with you, right? So that's where it is. So when you look at year one and go back and think, okay, what did you learn maybe about yourself, about the entire process? Did you make some changes? I know you made some changes to your staff, and obviously you look at your recruiting, but just in totality of your first year, what do you take from that?
How long do you have? Man, what I learned was a lot more about me, being in those situations. And, you have these ideas when you're an assistant coach, like, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Like, you make a list, right? Like, you're writing down, like, I love this head coach. I love my boss, but I'll never do that, right? And so you think when you get a job, like, boom, boom, like, I'm going to implement this, but it does not go that way whatsoever. And I learned, about myself is that, like, I have to have patience with the process. It's funny because you tell players that, right?
Yes.
Like, it's a process, have patience, and enjoy the journey. And last year, like, it went so fast, like, I couldn't really enjoy anything. And I don't know, I just learned how to just, like, sit back and just look at everything in totality. Like, don't, it's not the end of the world that this happened. It's not the end of the world that happened. But how are you going to change? How are you going to do that differently? And it was a lot of me looking in the mirror, like, how are you going to be different? How are you going to approach your players differently? What are you going to give to them? How much energy are you going to give to them? And we just invested so much time in this group. And that now, like, I'm learning that you have to continue that. Like, it never stops. Like, you're recruiting the players that you have, especially with the portal. Like, you are recruiting those players every single day, and I just wanted to be authentically me. And I wanted to give that to them because the first thing I learned in recruiting is that you have to be honest. And especially with them thinking that they have so many other options, like, be honest. Tell them what it is. This is what it's going to be about. And then you can move forward easier. And so, I mean, I learned a lot. Like, 6 inches over is like, it's like the Grand Canyon.
Yes.
It is the Grand Canyon, but I love it. Like, I still feel like I was made for this. So,
Well, I'm sure your boss is glad to hear that too. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as you reflect back on, you've been in those players' shoes before. You know, you had time in the WNBA and now also coaching experience in the Big 12. Now, as a head coach, how much of that do you reflect on those moments to help you through this growing process and now having the first year under your belt?
I use it a lot. I think more so in my head as, you know, I can remember a time when my coach said exactly this to me, right? Or I can remember feeling this way and my coach said this, so maybe I need to say that to them. So a lot of times, I mean, it was an instance when I was a sophomore, like I was going to my sophomore year at Oklahoma, and Coach Cole wanted me to do and be and lead this team, and I was like, what? Like, that's not for me. And I kept using the term like, that's not me. And she looked at me, and I will never forget this. And this changed my, like, just the path that I was taking at Oklahoma. She looked at me and she said, you are so selfish. And nobody, I don't care what they say, nobody wants to hear that they are selfish, right? But I wasn't giving all of me to Oklahoma, the program, right? And so, you know, I take those experiences and I give them to my players. And it's hard to be vulnerable, right? But I am, and I tell them about that, like I was being selfish at that time. Like, I don't want to see you go down that same route. And so I use it all the time. Like, I do, you know. But I think you have to. And that's what they get when they come and they play for me. Like, you're getting that experience, right?
Coach, you bring in 12 newcomers, and then we touched on only 3 returning student athletes. How do you find ways to gel this team together and just bond them, maybe even outside of the basketball arena?
So, you guys, this 12 that came in, plus our 3, they took it upon themselves. And when you have that, when you have a bunch of new people that's like, we're going to bond. Like, you come into my house, I'm cooking for you. Like, that's what we had. So, really, they made my job a lot easier because, you know, my staff and I have to find a way to, like, make it mesh, right? But they did the easy part. They did the hard part. They said, we're going to come together and we're going to love each other outside of this. So they established that, and you see it, like, they're in the offices all the time. They have a different energy about them, and it's not perfect, right? And we always tell them, like, nothing's going to be perfect. Like, some of you guys will be closer than others, but they have a respect for each other. And we constantly talk about that. Like, how do you talk to each other? How do you look at each other? Like, as women, what are you giving to each other, right? Like, we have non-negotiables, and our first one is respect. And so we talked about that in recruiting. We talked about that when they came on campus in June. And so they know, you know, they know what that looks like. We have we will respect them. We won't talk down to them. We won't demean them. Like, and they can talk to us. And so when you have that open communication and you're showing them what it looks like, they can be that with each other. And then it allows them to connect in a different way. And so they kind of establish that, and then we do things off the floor together, like we go get meals together, but I meet them also where they are. So I go to their place, right? I check on them outside of my office because, you know, coming into my office can seem like, like they're in trouble again, right? Yes. And I don't want them to ever feel like they're in trouble when they come in my office unless, like, I'm like,
unless they really are in trouble.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Or if I'm sitting there, like, you know, I've had those meetings, but I try to meet them in different places, right? I try to get them to see me outside of being their coach. Because, like, what's the thing you know about your coach? You're like, you're a coach. And, like, that is it, right? But I'm a mother. I bring my daughter around. My husband comes around. Like, they come to my house. And so I want them to see me as those things, too.
Breaking it down on the court for us a little bit, what would you say the identity of this team is right now and what we're going to see from this UMKC team this season?
I think we have a mix. So we have a mix of freshmen, like chickens with their hairs cut off, right? Like, they're going to play hard just because, you know, that's all they really know. And then we have we just have some players that can go get it. Man, they can go get it. And they may not know a play, but they can go get a bucket. And then we have those graduate students who have been here before. They've been at the Division I level, right? So we have a unique situation where we have a lot of balance, but our identity is always going to be defense. Like, we are going to compete and we're going to defend if we don't know how to do anything else. And so I want, like, any opponent that comes up against us, be like, man, they're going to compete. So you better be in. You're going to be in for a fight. Be ready for that fight. So that's kind of what we think our identity is going to be.
When you look, we know how difficult and how challenging the Summit League is from top to bottom, and it's a grind. Once you hit that time, you're going to have the Summit League and the Big Sky Challenge as well. When you looked at your non-conference, some opportunities, I know you've got Bradley early, right out of the gate, November 6th. You're going to play Kansas at Municipal, sort of on a neutral court in Kansas City. How did you approach non-conference scheduling, and what do you want to see early out of this group?
What I would like to see early is that they compete no matter who is in front of them, right? It's not really about who you play, but it's about you and how you can improve every day. And so we played Bradley. We played them last year. We're playing them again, but I want us to I want them to play free. I want to see, like, what are you like in a game situation, right? Now, I don't want it to be crazy, right? But I want to see, like, when everything comes down to it, can you put what you've learned, what we've spent months on top of months preparing for, can you put that into game situation? So that's what I would like to see against Bradley. When we come up against KU, I mean, it's KU. They won the WNIT last year. Like, they're a good team, well coached. I want to see who's going to compete, who doesn't care.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care because you're KU. I don't care because you're in the Big 12. I don't care because you're Power 5. I play basketball too. I put my pants on just like you do. I tie my shoes up just like you. I want to see who do we have that's going to live in that space.
Coach, before we wrap things up with you, I want to hear, what does success look like for you in year 2?
I've been asked this question already.
Well, you're already prepared.
She's got it down.
Yeah.
I think success, like, I mean, every AD wants you to say, like, wins. Like, I want to double my wins. And, like, yes, that is success, right? Can we do what we did last year in the tournament? Absolutely. But what success looks like for me is if our team is competing day in and day out, like, not waiting until we get into this tournament to compete. So are we building each day competitive? I want people to be like, we have no idea, about Kansas City. I mean, we're picked 9, which is cool, like, because nobody knows. But success for me is, does that translate for our team? Does the competitiveness translate into wins for us? And so I think, like, once I see that from them, I think the wins will take care of itself. But can we compete every day?
Before we go real fast, we had a little discussion up here. We have 2 of the 3 of us are KC girls. So we have to ask the favorite spots to eat in KC.
So you guys are going to be so disappointed. But,
Oh, no.
like, I don't eat meat.
Okay. That's
So-
okay.
No barbecue.
That's all right.
She's
no
out.
barbecue.
Okay.
That's okay.
But I don't know. I mean, I do Jack Stack. They have this salmon. Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah.
And it's just so many places in KC to eat. Like, it's crazy. You know what? Blue Sushi Grill. Oh my goodness,
Fantastic.
amazing.
Yep.
That's a plug for them.
Yeah.
Well, there we go.
Amazing.
Yeah,
We got one of those, we got one of those in Omaha, too.
We do have
so
one.
I know what you're
Yeah.
saying.
It
It's
is
good.
amazing. I like the place. The vibe is good too. So.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Had to ask, KC at heart. So.
We get it, guys. I'm not from KC.
It's
It's
okay. You got to know. Everyone has something that they like and they don't.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for the
Thank you,
time.
guys.
Best
I
of luck this
appreciate it.
season. We'll have Dominique Phillips up next.
Yeah.
We'll take a short break.
We love Dom.
Thanks, Coach.